dalam menjalankan tugas dan fungsinya. Salah satu program pendukungnya yaitu program pengendalian gratifikasi atau PBG.
Pengendalian gratifikasi itu kayak gimana emang?
Pada dasarnya, PBG itu melaksanakan kegiatan pengelolaan pelaporan penolakan dan penerimaan gratifikasi oleh insan OJK, serta pengelolaan barang gratifikasi yang telah ditetapkan sebagai milik OJK.
Oh, berarti setiap barang gratifikasi yang diterima oleh insan OJK tuh wajib dilaporin ya?
Nah, itu tergantung jenis barang gratifikasinya juga, Sil. Ada yang boleh diterima, ada yang memang harus ditolak.
Apa aja misalnya barang yang boleh diterima?
Kalau itu, ada beberapa jenis nih, Sil. Antara lain, seminar kit dan sertifikat. Hidangan atau sajian pada acara resmi kedinasan yang berlaku umum. Hadiah dengan nilai di bawah 1 juta rupiah dalam kegiatan perkawinan, khitanan anak, atau kegiatan keagamaan atau tradisi. Lalu bantuan bencana dengan nilai di bawah 1 juta rupiah. Terus, cenderamata kegiatan resmi dalam bentuk plakat dan atau perangkat promosi berlogo instansi yang berlaku umum. Halo semuanya, salam integritas. Dodo di sini.
Gimana kerja di OJK? Enak nggak?
Wah, seru dong. Kebetulan aku sekarang di bagian penanganan anti fraud nih.
Wah, ngapain aja tuh?
Secara umum, Grup Penanganan Anti Fraud atau GPAF
gimana kerja di
menjalankan
OJK?
fungsi assurance terhadap integritas insan OJK dalam menjalankan tugas dan fungsinya. Salah satu program pendukungnya yaitu program pengendalian gratifikasi atau PBG.
Pengendalian gratifikasi itu kayak gimana emang?
Pada dasarnya, PBG itu melaksanakan kegiatan pengelolaan pelaporan penolakan dan penerimaan gratifikasi oleh insan OJK, serta pengelolaan barang gratifikasi yang telah ditetapkan sebagai milik OJK.
Oh, berarti setiap barang gratifikasi yang diterima oleh insan OJK tuh wajib dilaporin ya?
Nah, itu tergantung jenis barang gratifikasinya juga, Sil. Ada yang boleh diterima, ada yang memang harus ditolak.
Apa aja misalnya barang yang boleh diterima?
Kalau itu, ada beberapa jenis nih, Sil. Antara lain, seminar kit dan sertifikat. Hidangan atau sajian pada acara resmi kedinasan yang berlaku umum. Hadiah dengan nilai di bawah 1 juta rupiah dalam kegiatan perkawinan, khitanan anak, atau kegiatan keagamaan atau tradisi. Lalu bantuan bencana dengan nilai di bawah 1 juta rupiah. Terus, cenderamata kegiatan resmi dalam bentuk plakat dan atau perangkat promosi berlogo instansi yang berlaku umum dengan nilai di bawah 1 juta rupiah.
Kalau honorarium, uang saku, uang transport, atau sejenis sebagai pembicara atau narsum, boleh diterima nggak, Do?
Kalau itu, insan OJK tidak boleh menerimanya dari pihak manapun, Sil.
Wah, pengaturan pengendalian gratifikasi di OJK ketat ya, Do?
Iya, Sil. OJK sebisa mungkin buat menjaga integritas dan profesionalisme para pegawainya. Aku kirim video pengendalian gratifikasi di OJK ya, Sil, biar bisa dibagi ke keluarga atau teman-teman yang lain. Iya, Sil. OJK sebisa mungkin buat menjaga integritas dan profesionalisme para pegawainya.
Hai, Do. Lagi sibuk nggak?
Enggak kok, Sil. Ada yang bisa dibantu kah?
Iya nih, Do. Kemarin aku udah lihat videonya nih. Ternyata OJK benar-benar menjaga integritasnya sebagai penyelenggara negara ya.
Iya, Sil.
Hai, Dok.
OJK
Lagi sibuk
berkomitmen
nggak?
untuk benar-benar menjalankan tugas dan fungsinya sebagai regulator dan pengawas jasa keuangan secara profesional.
Keren sih. Oh iya, Do. Misalkan terdapat oknum pegawai OJK yang ketahuan menerima gratifikasi atau bahkan suap nih, itu tindak lanjutnya gimana ya dari internal OJK?
Nah, ada salah satu program penguatan integritas lagi nih yang disebut Whistleblowing System atau WBS.
Apalagi itu, Do?
OJK WBS merupakan sarana untuk melaporkan dugaan pelanggaran yang dilakukan oleh pihak internal OJK. Pelaporannya bisa dilakukan oleh pihak internal maupun eksternal OJK.
Pihak eksternal juga? Tapi takut kalau mau lapor.
Jangan takut buat lapor, karena OJK WBS memiliki beberapa kelebihan. Di antaranya, fokus pada substansi, bukan siapa yang melaporkan.
Eksternal juga.
Memfasilitasi untuk pelaporan secara anonim. Data dienkripsi dengan mekanisme yang aman. Pengelolaan WBS dilakukan oleh pihak yang independen. Dan perlindungan bagi pelapor. Nah, agar tindak lanjut laporan lebih mudah dipantau oleh pelapor, pelapor wajib mengisi email yang tentunya bisa email dummy sehingga identitas tetap aman.
Oh gitu. Iya, Do. Kalau jenis pelanggaran yang dilaporkan, apakah cuma tindak pidana suap aja?
Terkait jenis pelanggaran yang dapat dilaporkan, OJK WBS memfasilitasi pelaporan korupsi, kolusi, dan nepotisme, penyuapan, tindak kecurangan termasuk penipuan, penggelapan aset, dan pembocoran informasi, pencurian, dan atau pembiaran melakukan pelanggaran, benturan kepentingan, dan perbuatan pelanggaran hukum, perundang-undangan, dan peraturan internal OJK.
Wah, cukup luas ya cakupannya.
Iya, Sil. Ini salah satu bentuk komitmen OJK menjadi role model bagi industri sektor jasa keuangan maupun instansi lainnya.
Mekanisme pelaporannya gimana, Do?
Pelaporan OJK WBS dapat diakses melalui www.ojk.go.id/wbs atau email ke ojk.wbs@rsm.id dan surat ke PO Box Etik OJK JKT 10.000. Kalau kamu melihat, mendengar, ataupun mengetahui adanya indikasi pelanggaran yang dilakukan oknum pegawai OJK, laporin aja ke OJK WBS.
Wah, mantap kali OJK dalam menjaga integritasnya. Info ini nggak boleh didiemin aja nih, harus di-share.
Bener, Sil. Terima kasih ya. Nah, itu tadi sedikit dari banyak program yang dimiliki OJK untuk mendorong penguatan integritas di OJK. Yuk, kita dukung bersama dan terlibat dalam pelaksanaan program-program tersebut. Karena setiap stakeholders memiliki tanggung jawab yang sama untuk menjaga independensi dan integritas OJK. Yuk, kita dukung bersama dan terlibat dalam pelaksanaan program-program tersebut. Karena setiap stakeholders memiliki tanggung jawab yang sama untuk menjaga independensi dan integritas OJK.
Ladies and gentlemen, I will start the webinar for today. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. The Honorable Executive Director of Islamic Banking Department, Indonesia Financial Services Authority, Mr. Deden Firman Hendarsyah. The Honorable Director of Islamic Banking Regulation and Development Directorate, Mrs. Nyimas Rohmah. The Honorable Professor of Islamic Economics, University Kebangsaan Malaysia, Professor Abdul Ghaffar Ismail. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen who are present here in webinar room. Good afternoon and welcome to Indonesia Financial Services Authority's knowledge sharing today, pros and cons analysis of adapting parameters for conventional finance in measuring performance of Islamic finance industry. I am Naura Hafizainaya as the MC for today's knowledge sharing. Our gratitude goes to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, who always gives His grace and guidance to all of us, that we are all very grateful to be blessed with health and opportunity, also that we can gather here to discuss one of Islamic finance industry issues. This event is conducted online, where we have around 130 participants attending here in our room meeting, and also streaming on YouTube. We bring Indonesia FSA staff, academics, Islamic economy and banking practitioners, also economy and banking practitioners, and etc. Distinguished participants, moving on to our main event, which is opening remarks by the Executive Director of Islamic Banking Department. Please welcome Mr. Deden Firman Hendarsyah.
Thank you, Naura. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Honorable Prof. Abdul Ghaffar Ismail, the Professor of Islamic Economic University Kebangsaan Malaysia, as the speaker of our webinar today. Selamat siang, Prof. Ghaffar. Distinguished professionals and scholars, my dear colleagues in OJK, and all participants, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Before we begin the webinar, let us praise the Almighty Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Because of His blessing, we can gather here in this webinar. Peace be upon the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, together with his family and all of his followers until hereafter. May Allah gather us all together with him and his companions in Jannah. First and foremost, I would like to express my gratitude to Prof. Abdul Ghaffar Ismail for this opportunity given to OJK. It is an absolute privilege to have a distinguished present among us today. Prof. Ghaffar is an esteemed expert in Islamic economics, banking, and finance, and has made significant contribution to global Islamic finance industry and research. Thank you, Prof. Ghaffar. This webinar will explore parameters used to measure the performance of Islamic finance industry and whether it is necessary to develop new parameters that are different from conventional ones. This is also in line with the policy direction of strengthening Islamic banking identity, stated in Islamic Banking Development Roadmap 2020 up to 2025, issued by OJK. Islamic finance industry currently use several conventional finance parameters to measure performance for several reasons. Among others are standardizations, comparability, investor expectation, or market acceptance, and also access to capital. Over time, efforts have been made to develop Islamic finance-specific performance indicators and benchmarks. However, the standardization and wide acceptance of these indicators are still evolving. One of the most important concepts in these matters is the Maqasid al-Syariah or Maqasid Syariah. Maqasid Syariah, which refer to the higher objectives and goals of Islamic law, can serve as a guiding principle in evaluating the industry's adherence to Islamic ethical and social principles. Based on Abu Zahrah theory on Maqasid Syariah, which is written in his book, Usul al-Fiqh, Maqasid Syariah encompasses three broad objectives, which are educating the individual, establishing justice, and promoting public welfare. Developing new parameters for Islamic finance that align with the Sharia objectives or Maqasid Syariah in measuring performance is one of the breakthrough we need to strengthen the identity of Islamic finance. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, this webinar is part of our initiatives to enhance awareness among public and stakeholders about Islamic finance principles, values, and benefits. We are truly fortunate to have Prof. Ghaffar as our distinguished speaker today. And I am confident that our webinar today will be enlightening, thought-provoking, and also highly engaging. Prof. Ghaffar's expertise in Islamic economics will undoubtedly shed light on key trends, challenges, and also opportunities in the industry, empowering us with invaluable knowledge and inspiration. To conclude, I would also like to thank and welcome all participants that takes the time out of their busy schedules to join us in this webinar. Through this webinar, I hope that all participants could not only exchange ideas, but also foster a spirit of collaborations and harness the power of collective wisdom. This webinar serves as a platform for us to explore new frontiers, challenge conventional based mindset, and seek innovative solutions to the complex challenges we face today, especially about the pros and cons analysis of adapting parameters for conventional finance in measuring performance of Islamic industry. Finally, I hope this webinar will run smoothly and achieves the goals as expected. Thank you for all your attentions, and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Mr. Deden, for the opening remarks. And we hope that today's knowledge sharing will provide substantive and also fruitful discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, before we move to the material session, we will have a photo session. So here we invite Mr. Deden Firman Hendarsha, Professor Abdul Ghaffar Ismail, and also Mr. Reza Mustafa to take the picture, and also for the panelists. We will start to take the picture and we will count from 1 to 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, once again. 1, 2, 3. Thank you, Mr. Deden, Professor Abdul Ghaffar, and also Mr. Reza for taking the picture with all of us together on today's knowledge sharing. Distinguished participants, now we will soon have the presentation followed by discussion presented by Professor Abdul Ghaffar Ismail, that will be led by Mr. Reza Mustafa. Before I redirect the session to Mr. Reza as the moderator, I will first convey Mr. Reza's brief profile. Mr. Reza Mustafa was a member of the Secretariat of the Islamic Financial Services Board, IFSB, seconded from Indonesia Financial Services Authority since May 2021 to 2023. He's responsible in conducting some projects related to standard development, such as macroprudential tools for Islamic banking, handbook for core principles of Islamic deposit insurance system, and core principle for Islamic finance regulation. Mr. Reza Mustafa has joined Indonesia FSA in 2016 with his recent designation as Assistant Director in Islamic Banking Regulation and Licensing Directorate. Prior to joining Indonesia FSA, Mr. Reza was 10-year experienced bankers, worked at 3 Indonesian large banks, having wide experience in some areas such as performance management, data analytics, strategic planning, and finance management in consumer and retail banking. Please welcome Mr. Reza Mustafa. Time is yours.
Thank you so much, Sister Naura. I hope you can hear me clearly. Okay.
Clearly.
Thank you so much, Honorable Bapak Deden Firman Herdiansyah, Executive Director of Islamic Banking Department OJK, Honorable Prof. Abdul Ghaffar Ismail, our prominent speaker in today's webinar. Distinguished participants, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahilladzi bini'matihi tatimmus salihat. Wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa mawalah. All praise to Allah for giving us His abundance of pleasures, and especially for giving us the opportunity to gather here virtually to gain our knowledge, as we all Muslims are obliged to seek knowledge as part of our ibadah, which is the main purpose of human creation in this world. And blessings and salutations to our Prophet Muhammad SAW, along with his companions, his family, and his ummah. It is a great pleasure to have the opportunity to guide this webinar on pros and cons analysis of adapting parameters for conventional finance in measuring the performance of Islamic finance industry. In this regard, we have the pleasure of our prominent speaker, Prof. Abdul Ghaffar Ismail, who has wealthy knowledge and experience in Islamic finance subject matter. And we hope that we can gain knowledge from his lecture today in order to increase our contribution to accelerating the development of Islamic finance in Indonesia. In line with our aspiration to accelerate Islamic finance development, as also addressed by Pak Deden earlier in his welcoming remarks, OJK has published the Indonesia Islamic Banking Development Roadmap for 2020 to 2025 to promote resilient and competitive Islamic banking, which significantly contributes to socio-economic development in Indonesia. One of the main strategies in this roadmap is to strengthen the Islamic banking identity by promoting its business uniqueness to reflect the strong Islamic banking characteristic compared to conventional banking operations. As being said also by Pak Deden, one of the Islamic banking characteristic is the spirit of maqasid Syariah in every aspect of Islamic bank's operation. This view of maqasid Syariah is something that all Muslims should be aware of as the consequence of surrendering ourselves in obedience to the Islam religion. We're expecting that this maqasid Syariah will create a significant impact on the objective of Islamic economy, which is falah, and also to pursue for equal distribution of wealth. Another important characteristic of Islamic bank is the product positioning. We currently, in Indonesia, most of the products offered are Sharia compliance products, meaning that the product packaging is more likely the same as conventional products, and most people are comparing its features and pricing to the conventional counterparts. However, in many literatures also, we can identify that we have a so-called Sharia-based product, which reflect the purity and the uniqueness of Islamic banking products, where conventional banks could not deliver such product. These products includes the profit-sharing investment account, ready stock murabaha, salam, and many others. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, today's topic is very relevant in this context to help us in identifying the pros and cons of using conventional finance measures in operation of Islamic banks. In line with our argument earlier, some critical questions have been raised recently, questioning the difference between Islamic banking and conventional banking regarding product delivery, pricing, performance measurements, and many others. We hope that this webinar can be our means to accelerate the Islamic banking development in Indonesia by promoting its uniqueness that can reflect Maqasid Syariah in terms of a wider perspective, as well as a Sharia-based product in terms of product positioning. We hope we can get an active discussion today, as we know that this webinar is attended by a wide variety of participants, including regulators, market players, academics, students, as well as the social media followers. And before we start the session, let me read a brief biography of our prominent speaker today. Prof. Abdul Ghaffar Ismail is well known for his deep knowledge, expertise, and passion for Islamic finance. He is also the chairperson of Organization of Islamic Economic Studies and Thoughts. He has remarkable experiences, including head of research division, Islamic Development Bank Institute, bank supervision advisor of the International Monetary Fund for Djibouti, and he has published extensively in many revered journals, and his papers have also been presented in many international and local conferences. His research interests include learning process and growth theory, intertemporal allocation of resources, earning management, capital adequacy standard for Islamic financial institutions, risk management, and institutional economics, making him an authority in this domain. Prof. Abdul Ghaffar Ismail work has not only inspired countless individuals, but has also made a significant impact on Islamic economics, banking, and finance. That is our speaker short profile. I would like to inform the participants that at the end of the session, we will have the Q&A session, and we encourage you to ask questions, comments, or even suggestions by using the raise hand feature or by writing your question in the Q&A box. And without further ado, I would like to welcome Prof. Ghaffar to deliver his lecture. And Prof. Ghaffar, the floor is yours. فليتفضل مشكورا.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you, Pariza. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin wassalatu wassalamu ala asrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Yang berbahagia Pak Dedan, Executive Director Islamic Banking Department, and also thank you also to the moderator, Ibu Naura. Okay. First of all, I would like to thank to OJK for inviting me to share my thoughts in this sharing knowledge session, and also to the committee members who give me the opportunity to discuss on these important issues, especially in measuring the performance of Islamic finance industry. Okay, and I'm not I'm very fortunate to share this thought with all the participants. And my engagement with the Islamic finance industry in Indonesia, I consider was quite some time when I get involved in the preparation of the master plan for Islamic economy for Indonesia, commissioned by the Bapenas. And after that, the government of Indonesia set up the KNEKS. I'm not mistaken, right? Pak Liza. Okay. Okay. What I'm trying to discuss here is, hope I can achieve this. I can fulfill the expectation from the executive director regarding the topic. Okay, on the pros and also cons analysis of adapting parameters for conventional finance in measuring performance of Islamic finance industry. Okay, when you go to the next slide, please. Okay, what I'm going to discuss here is I will discuss that into 4 parts. on the first on the introduction, and then second on the insight into the relationship between finance and economy, which partly will answer some of the questions raised by Pak Deden. And the next part is on the parameters that we want to adopt, which currently we don't have, that the measurement for Islamic banking. Okay, and then finally we want to interpret on the based on the data that I have on based on the measurement that I propose in part 3. Okay, next please. So as an introduction, I think it's quite significant facts or development that happen in many countries, where we witness a significant development, and not only in terms of the volume, but also in terms of the numbers of players in the Islamic finance industry. You can name it not only in Muslim country, but also non-Muslim country. So we have the fact that development of the Islamic finance is there, and also not only the development of the finance industry, but also it shows that the adoption of risk-sharing contract, okay, which might lead to the value creation to the shareholders, customers, and economy. Okay, and also at the same time, we also look at the objective. What is the objective of the establishment of Islamic finance industry? Okay, which basically is one of the objectives is to create balance between the material and also social objective. Okay, as mentioned by our Pak Deden just now about the fairness and also justice. Okay, so we are not only looking on the objective of the material or social objective, but also we are looking for the fairness and also justice. Okay, where based on this, we should go beyond not only we use the normal parameters to assess the performance of Islamic finance industry by having return on equity or return on asset, but we should go beyond that. This is what we are trying to show that in this presentation. Okay, we should go beyond the ROE, so we should go beyond ROA. Okay, next please. Okay, so what I'm going to propose here is I will explain the value creation issues in relation to Islamic finance industry. Basically, that also part of the main idea in Malaysia. We have the value-based intermediation, but maybe the value-based intermediation differ from what I'm trying to propose here is based on the value. How can Islamic finance industry create values? Okay, not only the values that can benefit many stakeholders, but also values in terms of the social values. Okay, so the issue are important because of what? Because of the 3 reasons. Because basically, that I want to propose here is value creation. We want to address the 3 issues or 3 reasons here. First is to address the value creation. The value creation can be established in Islamic finance industry. Second, Islamic economic system is basically to ensure fair and just distribution of wealth. Okay, and last one, Islamic finance industry is able to distribute income more equitable. So basically, the reason why I propose the value creation issues is to address these 3 issues. Okay, to address the value creation, and also the where in Islamic economic system we want to ensure that there is a fair and also just distribution of wealth. Okay, and finally, the ability of Islamic finance to distribute income more equitable. Okay, next please. There are 3 related questions to the question that I raised in our issues, the 3 issues that I raised. Okay, first is how the money, if you look at Article 28G in the Constitution, Indonesian Constitution, Undang-Undang 1945, okay, right to property. What is the right to property? Actually, when you look at the Constitution also discuss about the economy matters. Okay, economic matters also been discussed in our Constitution. When one of the matters that been discussed in the Constitution is right to property. Okay, what is the right to property? We have the right to transfer, we have the right to own, and also we have the right to manage. Okay, so here is the money is considered as the property that can be invested by the customers or Islamic financial institution that can generate profit, and then it can be distributed to Islamic financial institution and depositors. Okay, and then from there, how can it be distributed justly to economic agent? Okay. The second question is how it contributes to the well-being of depositors and also give return to the shareholders. Okay. So the subject of well-being is also under the issues here, or another question that we can answer in this presentation. And what are the other values created by Islamic finance industry? Okay. Next, please. If you look at the issues that have been discussed or mentioned by many scholars, okay, about the relationship between finance and economy, because we want to establish first the relationship between finance and economy. Why? Because the role of finance to GDP or to economic development. Okay, how can we link that the Islamic finance with the GDP or economic development? Okay, as mentioned by Schumpeter, he said that the process of economic development, actually by combining the exploration of entrepreneurship, meaning what is the definition of entrepreneurship is you are able to create wealth. Okay, how you are able to create wealth, and then how can you use innovation? Plus, here I add regulation. Okay, so three elements here is the importance of entrepreneurship. Okay, the entrepreneurship that come from the bankers, not only the entrepreneurship that come from the bankers, but also the values that come from the bankers, but also the values that come from the entrepreneur. Okay, and also the innovation. In terms of the product development that will be introduced by the Islamic financial institution, and also plus the regulation that are imposed to Islamic financial institution. Okay, all these elements become the mechanism that can be used to shape the contour of the development process, meaning that these three elements are important to our economic development. Okay, and if we look at the economic development, always portray as increase in income and wealth or GDP. Okay, and you can see that in the recent work by Anwar and Iwasaki that appear in the Asian Development Review, shows that there is evidence for the causation between growth and finance, meaning that finance lead to the economic growth, or maybe from finance to growth to finance. That is from the development perspective. Okay, so this shows that the importance of finance to economic growth or growth to the Islamic finance. Okay, next please. So other literature, but other literature could not agree with one direction. So that's why when we look at the direction here is normally we want to propose that we develop the finance sector and then lead to the economic growth, or we have an economic development first, and then after that the financial sector will grow. Okay, so either A affect B or B affect A. So Roman Hobart and also his friend concur that the relationship is not from one direction. Okay, it happened on both sides. I mean, A affect B, B affect A, meaning that finance affect economic growth, but at the same time also growth affect the Islamic finance, okay, or affect the finance. Okay, But the problem here is they notice that in order to link that, maybe the missing point here is that it's not sufficient or very precise link between theory and measures. Okay, how do you measure that the development of Islamic finance? Okay, how do you measure that the performance of Islamic finance industry? Okay, in order to be linked with the economic development. Okay, so from there, next please. Islamic economic scholars also suggest that because Islamic finance industry actually work in the same market, okay, in the same market with the conventional counterpart, okay. So, but they are also looking on the profit sharing basis instead of interest rate, okay, that happen in the conventional market, okay. So they believe that the Islamic scholars believe that, okay, two direct effects will take place. One is investment may be higher because you can create higher value added, okay, because entrepreneur can pass part of the uncertainty of the production to the financier or here to the financial institution, or the ability to pass part of the risk to financier will encourage composition or investment to a riskier and reduce cost pressure for business efficiency. So here is lower cost of production and also encourage output, whereas specification of profit share will not affect the price output decision. So that's why Islamic economists believe that in the presence of profit sharing, it will increase the investment, meaning that higher value added, and also the ability to create more output because you can reduce the cost, and also that make the business become efficient. Okay. Next, please. However, we want to look at from the different angle, where here is what is actually the role of Islamic finance, or what is the role of the Islamic finance industry. Okay. Here is, we look at from the basic point of view, where Allah provide the resources. For whom Allah provide the resources is for the benefit of all His creation. Okay, where Allah own and manage everything, including resources. Either you have the resources on the earth, on the sky, or on the ocean. Allah created that. Okay, and also not only created, Allah created, but also Allah own and also manage. Okay, and also not only that, Allah is also the provider and the sustainer of everything in the sky and also in the earth or in between. Okay, and here we consider that Allah is the owner and possessor of all the affairs. Okay, we are only the servant. Okay, meaning that we work in the Islamic financial industry, we work as a servant to Allah to manage the resources. Okay, it shows that everything is belong to Him and He granted resources in abundance. And more importantly is Allah granted resources in abundance. That is very important. Okay, you can see that. I think during my time, if you look at the table of element when we attended the science subjects, the table of element, maybe we have only 30 something table of element. But now we have more than that, 30, right? And you look at the table of element. So it shows that what resources is abundant. Okay? Abundant, sorry. Next, please. So then what we should do then, what is the role of, okay, what is the role of Islamic financial institution here? Because Allah asked us to spend what are provided for them. And then for whom we should spend among others in the cause of Allah, for parents, relative orphans, and the needy and the travelers, and spend in the charity of zakat. So it shows that one here is the role of Islamic financial institution is to allow the smooth flow of resources smooth flow of resources from someone, I mean from the depositors or shareholders who has access resources to those who has less resources. I mean entrepreneur here, or the borrowers or customers. So this transfer may have an implication for the development studies or for the macroeconomics of any particular country. Okay, next please. Okay, so what is the approach that you want to do here is because financial institution as the transmitter of resources. Okay, transmitter of resources from the people who have an access, okay, money here to those who have less or need money. Okay, so if we look at when we calculate the GDP of the country, we can have different approaches, right? Okay, you can have the calculation of GDP of the country based on the output method. Okay, we can also use the based on the income method, or we can also use the expenditure method. Okay, first if you look at the balance sheet of a bank, for example, I use the example bank here rather than to use all the financial Islamic financial players in the market. I use only the bank as an example. Okay, so if you look at the balance sheet composition of Islamic bank, okay, we have the expenditure. Okay, not only expenditure but also we have the income. So meaning that we can see that from the basic idea on how we can calculate the contribution of Islamic financial institution to the economy based on the output approach, based on the expenditure approach, or based on the income approach, meaning that that balance sheet can be used to calculate that the contribution. Okay, but here is if you look at the issue here, okay, on the Islamic bank output, normally some countries, they don't disclose rigorously on this component, okay, which sometimes is very difficult to analyze. So this is data requirement, okay, to analyze some of the ratio that may be useful on measuring the value added. Okay, for example, some of the information is about the capital gain and losses, in fact financing, capital injection, and promissory note. Okay, but if you look at value added measure on Islamic bank output, which is basically based on production or transaction in each time period, sometimes it can be done. Okay, and also net income, expense flow accumulated in a profit or loss, which then carried forward to the balance sheet. Sometimes you have that figures, sometimes you don't have that figures. So it may affect on the how do you calculate the this, how do you use the method, this method, value added method, to measure the performance of the Islamic finance industry. Okay, next please. Okay, now this is the typical. Okay, this is the typical information that you can gather from the balance sheet of an Islamic bank. Okay, on the asset side, we have cash. Again, Pariza and also the participant, it depends on the item that you disclose that in the financial system, because I'm sure that in different countries they have a different way to best practice to disclose that information. Okay. Okay. On the asset side, we have the cash, we have financing, we have investment, and also we have other asset. And of course, when you add up all those, we have the total asset. Okay. And the second half of this table, at the second half of the the bottom of the table, we have the equity and liabilities. Okay, we have deposit, we have investment, we have other liabilities, and also we have equities. And in total, we can add up and then it make up the total liabilities and equities. Okay. For example, if you look at this is the year from year 1 until year 4, okay, you end up the sum up the figures. So the total asset of this bank is 184 million. Okay, and the total liabilities is 184 million. Okay, right. So you can check this. Okay, next. This is on the asset side. Okay, again, depending on the how you ask your players. I mean, as a regulators or JK as a regulators, you can come up with a template, and also based on the accounting standard that you follow or accounting policy that you follow. So this is the item that normally used by the Islamic bank. Okay. So you look at in panel A, income derived from investment or depositors, fund, and others, because you need to differentiate between depositors, okay, the fund and also the investors fund or shareholder fund. Okay, where income derived from investment of depositors, fund, and also others, you can categorize into different types of income. Because you are in your asset, you have your financing, right? So you can have financing income and hibah. So maybe you, part of your fund you save in other bank through the interbank. So then you receive hibah from the other banks, okay, because of you save your money in other banks, okay. Or you are dealing with other dealing income. For example, I give you the example where we have the sukuk. Sukuk can be categorized as investment or available for sale or available for trading, meaning that sukuk can be traded in the secondary market. So meaning that you can also receive from that dealing activities, okay, other dealing income. Okay, and also we have the other operating income from which is basically not much here, other operating income. So you may dealing with the transaction. For example, we draw money from other ATM machine, so you can receive income from there. Or you can have the income from fee and also commission. Okay, you are dealing with a forex, or you are dealing as a agent, so you will receive the fee and also commission. Okay, and of course other income. Okay, so in total you can have the component. You can add up all these components up, and then after that you deduct the allowance for losses on financing. So again, it is subject to the rules of the regulation of the country. Okay, so when I had the opportunity to work with the regulators here in Malaysia, and also the players here in Malaysia and also in other countries, the allowance for losses depend on the best practices in the particular country. Okay, sometimes you allocate for bad financing how much, and then provision for bad financing. Okay, provision for doubtful or past financing. You have the different category of financing, classification of financing. So then from there, how much is the provision, and then how much is the allowance that should be given if you categorize that losses. Okay, and also impairment loss from dealing and investment securities. Okay, this is basically you make an investment, but due to some reason that maybe the market is not in favor of your investment, so you need to allocate some losses. If you, let's say, invest in sukuk, you invest in stock market, so you need to look into this as investment risk reserve, okay, as part of the impairment loss. Okay, because you deal with the investment securities which is subject to the market fluctuation. Okay, And also minus the transfer to profit equalization reserve. Because recently we have some discussion whether we want to go back to this profit equalization reserve, okay? Because in Malaysia, the practice in the 90s and also 1920s, okay, only after 2010, I think, they abolished their profit equalization reserve, okay? But we still have that amount in the balance sheet of the Islamic Bank, okay? And then the second one is other expenses, which are directly attributed to the investment of the depositors and also shareholders fund, okay? Okay, next, please. Now, total distributable income, okay? So we need to look into income attributed to the depositors because we have the deposit from customers. We can have the Mudarabah fund and so non-Mudarabah fund. And the second one is deposit and placement of bank and other financial institution. Okay. So we have, like I said, that here is basically or mainly they are doing the interbank market. Okay. So if you look at this income, is actually income attributed to depositors become the main contribution of income to the banks, okay? And then the next one is because some of the shareholder fund need to be invested, okay? And then it need to be separated from the fund that contributed by the depositors, okay? So therefore, we have to income attributable to the shareholders and then income attributable to the depositors. So we need to separate this. Because why? Because this money come from the shareholders, and then others fund come from the customers. Okay, and also they invest in different portfolio. Okay, so the same also goes to the income derived from the investment of shareholders fund, income from financing, income or hibah, other dealing income, other operating income, fee and commission, and also other income. Okay, next, please. So how can we use this information? So actually, it's basically depend on the information that been given by the bank or disclosed in their balance sheet, okay, or financial statement. Next, please. Can we go to the next slide, please?
Mr. Fatima, do you mind to share the slides, please? Or maybe Sister Wilda can take over the slide, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay, thank you.
And then after you learn about the income, from where the income come from, okay, so we total up all the net income there, and then we minus the personal expenses, meaning salary to the staff, and also overhead and expenditure. Okay, this is very important. So normally the regulators will look into that, right, Pak Riza? Sometimes they ask to increase the salary of the bank staff. Okay, so from the perspective of regulators, sometimes they need to look into whether this may affect on the profit. Okay, so they need to look into their policy in relation to the expenses. Okay, and some of the item here is the main item. The main item of these expenses is personnel and also overhead. Okay, the others are not very significant, like amortization of intangible asset or impairment loss from property, plant, and equipment, because normally the property, plant, equipment are not much in the banking system. Okay, and also the finance cost. Then after that, how much that you're going to pay to the authority or the government? They pay the zakat and also they pay the taxation. Okay, they pay the zakat and also pay the taxation there, because it is in Malaysia, the Syariah committee normally ask the bank to pay, okay, the zakat. We encourage them to pay, okay, but then it's subject to the subject to the players whether they want to pay or not. But we guide them that they should pay, okay, but it's subject to, again, to the board, okay, whether they agree or not with our suggestion. Okay, taxation and then profit after taxation. So we can see that finally is the net profit for the financial year end, okay, about 1.5 million, right? So this is how we calculate the value added for Islamic bank based on the profit and loss, right? Next, please. Okay, how can we calculate the profit and loss? Value added, a summary of wealth creation. As mentioned by Pak Deden, one of the objectives of the Market Sharia is the preservation of wealth. It's not to safeguard the wealth, but it's preservation. Because I remember that the Ibn Ashur used the preservation instead of Imam Ghazali used the safeguard. Okay, preserve meaning that you safeguard and also make it grow. Okay, safeguard is you safeguard. Okay, but safeguard as preservation is you safeguard and make it grow. So meaning that we should encourage bank not only to safeguard your wealth, but also to make the wealth grow. Okay, so this is the purpose of having, because your role is as the transmitter of the resources. So the bigger the size, meaning that you are able to provide more resources to the economic agent. Okay. So what we can see here is the value added that can be created, which I believe that banks should have all this data. Okay. Then you can calculate the value creation from there. Okay. Wealth creation. Okay. From there. So you can have the different component of value added here: profit, commission, and other revenues. And then profit paid to depositors and cost of other services. So then from there, profit, commission, and other revenues. And then you minus the profit paid to depositors and the cost of other services. So you have the how much the bank can create wealth. Okay, well created there. Item number 4. And then if you look at from this profit created, how much can be distributed to whom? The wealth is actually distributed to different players. Right? One is employee, so you can pay them salary and also other benefits, or you pay to the government. Because government provide the electricity or utilities, you pay to the government, or also you pay the tax. Okay, and also you pay zakat. Okay, so meaning that wealth that been created, so part of it you distribute to the whom? To the employees, and part of it you distribute to the government. Okay, you pay the zakat, and also you not only that, you pay to the you pay tax to the government, and then you distribute to the shareholders, dividend paid to shareholders. Okay, dividend paid to shareholders, that much that the dividends paid to the shareholders. Okay, and part of that actually you want to retain some of them, right? Because retain profit. Okay, retain profit. Okay, so again, this is another issue. Regulators sometimes look into that item, because there is, I will explain that later. The higher the retention to support business growth is very important to the players, but it reduces the amount that you want to pay to the right, based on your planning, the amount that you want to pay to the depositor, the one that you want to pay to the employees, or you want to pay to the government. Okay, so meaning that retained profit actually to support your business, and also not only to support the business, but to increase your capital adequacy requirement. Okay, that can increase your capital, then make your institution become stable. Okay, but on the other hand, that part actually should be distributed to others, economic agent. Okay, but here is you retain and then you want to support your business growth. Okay, so if you look and from there, of course, the wealth created and also wealth distributed will be the same. Okay, 4.2 million, and then down there, the last row, 4.2 million. If you refer to year one, and over time, again, is because the role of the Islamic financial institution is to preserve wealth. It shows that it has been proven here that wealth created has increased, okay, from 4.2 million to 7.9 million. So meaning that Islamic bank here, these particular cases are able to preserve the wealth, okay, able to preserve the wealth, okay, over time. Next, please. So this is basically what we can summarize from our table before this, okay. Value added, how much is the value added? Profit, commission, and other revenues. Profit paid to depositors and cost of other services. And then this is the wealth created, 20.2 million, for example. And then your distribution of wealth, you distribute to employees, okay, government, and also shareholders. And then part of it you retain to support your future business. And then, of course, your wealth distributed is 20.2 million, equal to wealth created. Okay, this is a summary from the previous. Okay, although the figures are different, but here to show that how we can calculate the value added based on the profit that you generate, and also the profit that you pay to the depositors, and then how much that you distribute well to employees' salaries as a salaries or other benefit. To the government, you pay the tax, and also you pay the zakat, and you distribute to the shareholders, you pay the dividend. Okay, and then also how much that you want to retain some of your profit for your future development. Okay, next, please. This is what we can summarize, that over time, how much is the employees will get from the total wealth that been created. Okay, so you can see that not much different from time to, over time, the distribution. Okay, the employees, how much they can get, and also the government, the shareholders, and also the some of the profit you retain that. Okay, so from there we can see that most of the wealth created goes to where? Goes to employees, because employees asking for higher salary, right? Because you want to maintain the staff. Okay, otherwise they jump to, or they move to other institutions, right? Maybe they move to the conventional bank, or they move to other countries, right? And also the shareholders, they also maintain that. But in terms of the proportion shareholders and the retention, okay, you see that the amount is sometimes is higher than what the employees get. Okay, next, please. So this is the division in a diagram here. You can see that the 40% goes to employees, 50% goes to, 50% goes to government, and then 11% to shareholders, and the The rest is go to the, as a retention. Okay. So what you can do here is you may calculate a comparison over time. Okay, where over time whether they maintain that the ratio distribution are well treated by this institution, Islamic financial institution. Okay, but not only that, you can calculate the Gini coefficient to show the degree of inequality in the distribution of income. Okay, so from the figures that have been created here, you can measure the Gini coefficient to show the degree of inequality, whether the wealth is equally distributed or fairly distributed. No, I don't think that equally distributed, that fairly distributed, based on that Gini coefficient. Okay, so based on my study in Malaysia, not fairly distributed. Okay, not fairly. So you should advise on how can we achieve that the income, the wealth that have been created are fairly distributed. Okay, is one of the point that mentioned by just now by Pak Deden, the executive director, on how can we distribute fairly the wealth. Okay, next please. Can you go to the next slide? Okay, this is an example of, you can see that the example of several Islamic bank in Malaysia. Bank Muamalat, Bank Islam Malaysia Berat, Afid Islamic, Islamic, CIMB Islamic, Hong Leong Islamic. I'm sure that one of them, I know that CIMB and also Maybank Islamic got the branches in Indonesia, right? Okay. Hong Leong, RHB, Maybank, Public Islamic, HSBC Amanah, Standard Chartered Sadiq, OCBC Alamin, Alliance Islamic Bank. Okay. So you can see that who are the main players in terms of the ability to create more wealth. Okay, Maybank, of course, and also BIMB. And the third is I think CIMB, the third one. Okay, so you look at from the figures there, how much they allocate their wealth to the different stakeholders. Okay, others is actually the depositors, how much that you pay the zakat, and then some of the profit you transfer that as a reserve or retain that, and then give it to the shareholders, and then to the government and also the employees. Okay, next please. Okay, now the question for discussion for us to discuss. Okay, question for discussion. Question number one is the adoption of risk sharing mode of financing. Okay, there is a debate whether we should go more for mudarabah musyarakah mode of financing. Okay, because we would lead to the fairness in serving the interest of community as a whole, and is expected to promote value creation to the depositors, shareholders, and eventually to the economy. Okay, so the question is, could a higher risk sharing create a better distribution? So you can prove that from the data that you have in Indonesia, whether the bank that utilize more risk sharing method, they can create a better distribution. Because here is, for example, on the asset side, you use the risk sharing, and then on the liability side, you also use the risk sharing. Can we come up with that, a better distribution of income? That was only well. Okay. Compared to, let's say, the bank use a lot of what? Tawaru on the financing side, and also what? Caught on the liability side. Okay, whether they can create a more fair distribution. Okay. Second is, may regulations such as regulation on non-performing financing and risk allowance change the distribution of wealth. Because when you classify the non-performing financing, let's say some bank use a very rigorous or very stringent policy, non-performing financing, for example, when your customers don't pay for one, let's say 2 consecutive months, you consider as bad financing. Okay, so and then other banks use the different internal policy on this non-performing financing. Okay, and also investment risk allowance. Okay, also bank have their own internal policy on that. So whether that may change the distribution of wealth. Okay, and then my third question for discussion is, could financial reporting based on contract produce a more transparent and distribution of wealth? So you can explain that, whether the reporting currently, the reporting style or the standard that we have is actually not based on the contract. Okay, not based on the contract. Actually based on the financing, general, but not according to the types of financing. Okay, how much that, let's say, for example, you use the mudarabah on your financing side, on your asset side, and then should be mapped or matched with the mudarabah on your liability side. So they become more transparent on the distribution of wealth. Because distribution that if you give it to the depositors actually is very general. How much is the income that you distribute to the depositors, regardless the contract that you use in that transaction. Okay. Next, please. Okay. This is how we want to. I want to come back to the issues that I discussed before this on the creating wealth via risk sharing and benefiting employees, customers, and community. The more risk that you want to take, okay, actually it create more wealth for you. Okay, because this is higher risk, normally higher return. Okay. But whether that will benefit the employees, whether that benefit the customers, whether that benefit the communities. Because whether higher return, higher wealth, meaning that employees will get higher salary and more benefit. Salary and more benefits. And also to the customers, whether the ability of the bank to create more wealth, so you can customers give more higher return to customers. Okay, you can imagine now the inflation rate is higher than the return to depositors, right? So how can the customers, okay, I mean, save their money in the bank because the return of my deposit is lower than the inflation rate. Okay, and then the next one, how can the higher wealth that you generate because you adopt or you embark in a higher risk sharing activities that can benefit the communities where you pay higher zakat or you pay higher tax. So with that higher tax or higher zakat, that can benefit the communities. Okay, so there is the interpretation that we can learn from that value added measurement. Okay, next please. Okay, interpretation number 2. So my question is, what are the pros and what are the cons? So you have the return on equity. Okay, you have the return on deposit, but this is deposit from the customers. You are return on deposit, but it is return to the banks. Okay, you declare mudarabah, how much? 30% to the bank, 70% to the customers. Right, 70% to the customers, 30% to the bank. But the actual fact is, return of deposit for the bank is higher than return to deposit of the customers. Okay, over time. Okay, over time here. You look at return on deposit, return on deposit for your customers, return of deposit from your bank, the bank got higher return than the customers. Okay, and of course, higher return. If you look at the return on the equity, the customers got more higher return than the return on equity. Okay. So now is what are the pros and what the cons? Here is you see that if you look at from here, from this measurement, from our this type of figures, it shows that the distribution are not fairly distributed. The return, the wealth are not fairly distributed from our here, from the figure here. Okay, so now is how can we construct, okay, the method here. Of course, we have the measurement. We have the measurement to measure the wealth that can be distributed, okay, based on the data that we have. But how can we come up with a fairly distribution of wealth? Okay, next please. Okay, I give you an example here. Okay, how to assess the investment. Okay, because just now we only discussed or we only assess the performance of Islamic Bank overall at institutional level. We want to assess at the portfolio level. Okay, we want to assess at portfolio level. I think again it depends on the how you ask your bank to disclose that information in your balance sheet or in your financial statement. Here, for example, here we ask the bank, regulator asked the bank to disclose the investment based on different types of investment. Okay, investment held for trading, investment available for sale. One, for example, you invest in sukuk or you invest in government Islamic bond. Okay, and then you invest in money market instrument, or you invest in unquoted securities. Okay, or you can invest also available for sale, but you can have a different maturity here. One is why we have this category of investment of the requirement of the regulators, where normally we ask the bank to have the liquidity requirement. In order to fulfill that liquidity requirement, you separate or you have a composition of your investment for different purposes, for trading, available for sale, or for investment. So the three categories. Okay, investment mean held for investment, or investment held for trading, or investment available for sale. Okay. Can we go to the next slide, please? Can you go to the next slide? Yeah, okay. What is the effect of that investment on cash flow? Okay, because you know that the cash flow, okay, come from your activities. Okay, your cash flow come from your activities. Either your activities in providing financing, or in your investment, okay, or in other activities, okay. And some of them, okay, some of the adjustment on your cash flow should be done on the component that are related to your investment. I give you the example here. Let's say you invest in sukuk, let's say for 10 billion, and then you separate it into, let's say, 8 billion for your investment, 1 billion for available for sales, and 1 billion available for trading. Okay. For trading, you can, if you are ready, somebody want to buy your sukuk, you are ready to sell. But the other one is you can transact, you can, use that for your sales anytime. Okay. And then the other one is for your investment. For the investment, normally, what we see that the benchmark that we use on the sukuk pricing is based on the monetary policy pricing. Okay. Monetary policy, let's say monetary policy, you set the overnight policy rate is 3% plus the margin, plus the margin, plus the margin equal to the sukuk return. If let's say you use the ijarah, that sukuk return is equivalent to ijarah fee. Okay. But over time, it depends on the monetary policy of that at that particular time. So meaning that what happened is it affects on your cash flow over time, right? Because the investments in sukuk subject to the return, this return is subject to the monetary policy at that time. Because the OPR keep on changing, especially in recent years, okay? So that affect on your cash flow, okay? So if that happen, it affect on your cash flow. Next, please. Actually, if you want to learn about this, you cannot learn that within 10 minutes. Okay, you should have maybe one day training. Okay, anyway, okay.
Pardon, Prof, if I may interrupt.
Please.
You have 5 more minutes, Prof,
okay,
before we proceed with the Q&A session.
Yeah, I'm finishing now, inshallah.
Thank you so much, Prof.
Yeah. So if you look at the investment made in sukuk, subject to tenure, market value, and monetary policy. So if you look at the internal rate of return in relation to sukuk, so you look at there in the internal rate of return, how much is internal, which normally you want to make sure that the net cash flow should be equal to 0, right? Okay. So then you can play around on the internal rate of return. So next, please. So next, please. Yeah. So next, if you look at normally the investment of your sukuk, normally you will get negative return, but towards the end you will get the positive return. Okay. But the issue here is depending on again on the ujrah fee that you're going to receive from the issuer. Okay. And of course, you need capital injection if let's say the sukuk going to default. Okay. But the main idea from this NPV and also NRR, net present value, and also internal rate of return is based on a trial and error. You can use the Excel to calculate RR where you can achieve that the return internal rate or use different figures on IRR, and then you can look at how much that affect on your cash flow. Okay, because the main idea here is that cash flow will affect on your wealth, how the ability of your institution to create wealth. Okay, next please. So the end result are cash flow that guide, because IRR is used to compare the profitability of sukuk, meaning that we can still use IRR and also NPV to assess your portfolio that affect on the how you determine your composition of your sukuk portfolio. For example, you want to categorize as investment, or you want to categorize as held for trading, or available for sale. Okay, next please. I think that the last slide, I think, takeaway. Okay, what is the takeaway from this discussion? Okay, Islamic bank play a valuable and integral part in the development of the economy, because Islamic finance can contribute to the GDP and wealth distribution. Okay, but here is we want to focus on the sustainable economic wealth, because from that sustainability, how do you can sustain the economic wealth of the Islamic Bank? You can actually economically empower employees, because the more wealth that you can create, you can give more salary benefit to your employees, higher shareholders, higher dividend to shareholders, and of course to the customers. And not only that, it provides a revenue to the state, meaning more money to the exchequer. And also, how can you provide support the social development project through zakat? Okay. Second is knowledge that you can gain from this is the concept of wealth creation. What are the parameters? Okay, I'm sure that you can name it. What are the parameters involved when you want to create the wealth, the wealth that can be created by Islamic Bank? And the last one is the skill. Hope the skill that you can gain here is able to read the financial statement of Islamic Bank. Okay, that is the skill. Okay, and not only this read, but to measure the value added from financial statement, and then how to interpret that values. I think that is the important skill that you can gain from this lecture, hopefully, and also of course the knowledge. So with that, I pass to you, Pak Riza. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. Ghaffar. Mashallah, tabarakallah. What a very interesting and very comprehensive and inspirative presentation that you present to us just now.
Yeah.
It is also very interesting to know that we have to promote more on the value creation in the Islamic finance. It is something that I think we still lag behind in Indonesia, because currently people presuming that Islamic banking, because of this kind of measurements that has the same concept as the conventional, so we couldn't give any value addition for the customers as well as for the shareholders, and generally for the economy. So I think this is a very interesting concept that we have to study further in OJK especially, and also the use of the parameters of the conventional. Maybe it is still relevant for us, like you mentioned, just for comparing with the performance of the conventional. But I think it will be better if we can find specific measures or parameters that reflect the characteristic of the Islamic banking, and for the sake of the maqasid al-Syariah point of view. So I think that will be our conclusion. I think that there will be more discussion going forward, because we have many participants here, as well as I will also like to introduce, we have the privilege of our Deputy Commissioner of OJK Institute, Pak Iman Shah here. I would also like to welcome him if you have anything to add or to question or comments from your side, Pak Iman Shah. It will be a very pleasure for us to have you in this forum, maybe. Please, Pak Iman Shah.
Thank you, Pak Reza, as a moderator today. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Assalamualaikum, Professor.
Assalamualaikum.
Very pleased to have you with us today on our webinar. It's a very special for us as well to learn more from your side, Professor. Thank you so much. I really appreciate for that. I follow your presentations. I do appreciate that we have some like a new perspective on how we are approaching the value added coming from the Sharia financial institutions. And well, I should say that I may misunderstood that related to the topic or the title of the webinar today is actually we want to like having a more clear pros and cons analysis on how we are comparing the conventional financial institutions into the Sharia financial institutions. But anyway, I think the insight coming from you, Professor, is very highly appreciated. in particular for myself, because I think I left already banking sector since like 10 years ago, but I think I always like to learn more from new things from the banking sector. But anyway, through your presentation, May, I have several points that I want to have your further view, professors. One on the value creations, I think, and it is actually very relevant to our case in Indonesia, with regard to the market share of Sharia banking in Indonesia into the banking industry as a whole. I think so we consider still very low. And I think when we are talking about value creations, my view is actually that customer maybe see more positive, returns coming from the Sharia banks. But I'm not quite sure whether I correctly understand about this. But since we are comparing the banking Sharia market share into the total of banking assets, is still very low. So if it is something that very positive, very returns, bigger returns enjoyed by our depositors from the Sharia banks, and the question is why they are not still, using leverage on our banking, our Sharia banks, instead of they are still leverage on how they are using this conventional bank. That's why I think it's one aspect that we still see that our banking sector, particularly the Sharia bank, is still the market share is still low compared to the conventional banks. There is a joke inside us. You want to see the Sharia bank in Indonesia, having a bigger market share, then you have to stop the growth of the conventional bank. Then you have this Sharia bank is bigger than, but that's not the fact, right? But I think the fundamental issue is why with this positive impact of having more value added coming from the Sharia banks, but why people still don't want to have this Sharia bank instead of these conventional banks. You mentioned about resharing, right? Even in the asset side, on the liability side, it's still using the resharing. I think it's very different from the conventional bank. So I think that's one issue that we want to have from your perspective, Professor, with regard to this our fact that we have today, that we are still struggling to increase our banking Sharia market share in our banking systems. And then I think one issue as well related to the how we are doing classifications on this non-performing financing. I think we still use quite similar with the standard that we use for the conventional bank. But when we have this resharing concept on the asset side, so the question is whether it is kind of like privilege to have also to the deposit to the debtors when they have these non-performing financings coming from the banks. And I think and one issue that I think also when we have these consolidations on Sharia bank, also the conventional bank on the group basis. So how that would see the impact of this value creations, distribution of wealth, and etc. into the consolidation process on this group of the banks. See, in our case, let's say Bank Mandiri, and before they have this Bank Syariah Mandiri, but now Bank Syariah Mandiri is already standalone banks, right? But anyway, the issue is how we consolidate between conventional into also the Sharia banks, and then we can see still that the value added coming from the Sharia banks. The other things that I'm thinking about is about, there's a challenge for ourselves. We have this, I don't know in the case of Malaysia, Professor, but I think for Indonesia, we have already brands of our Bank Syariah Indonesia in Dubai, right, Pak Reza? Yeah. So I think well, the issue coming from myself actually, why Dubai? Why not, go into southern of Philippines, where the Muslims population is also quite big in southern Philippines. So I think when you are talking about having also be what is it? You are increasing you are having also to increase the distribution of wealth, and then you can see that Islamic bank in Philippines is not really something that you can compare to your case, Professor, in Malaysia or in Indonesia. So what is really the rationale of these banks go into further places rather than to neighbor countries that I think there's also market potentials there to be captured by our Sharia banks. And the last one, I think, can we go to slide 23? Is very micro, but I think I can see the figure as well. It's quite.
Yeah.
Pak Reza, slide 23 kalau nggak salah. So,
23.
Yeah, 23. Professor, I can see here the figure from
Yeah.
I think it's quite a phrase here from year 1 to year 4, and then after year 5, I think the number is quite significantly increasing. So, is there any very specific issues that related to this change in the number of from year 1 to year 5?
Year 5, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That's I think some comments, some thoughts, Professor. But anyway, thank you again for your insight, your knowledge. Jazakallah, Professor. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much, Pak Imansyah, for your comments and your questions. It will be very interesting to know what will be the response from Prof. Abdul Ghaffar here, because there are so many questions to respond. So I hand it over to Prof. Ghaffar. Please, Prof.
Yeah. Thank you, Pak Imansyah. I know some of the OJK staff, like the Deputy Commissioner that already retired, and also Prof. Mulyaman Hadaya.
Yes.
Okay. Anyway, I think I'm happy that you agree with my suggestion to have the value creation be part of the main agenda of the Islamic banking. Yeah. But of course, there is some issues that need to be addressed here, because one is issues on the fair distribution, okay, and also how can we come up with a very rigorous measurement that cover all. I mean, they cover all the operation of the banking industry that embed that the value added concept into our measurement. Okay, but I want to look into the issues here where normally the customers, of course, they are looking for higher return, right? That is definitely, because if you give one mountain of gold, you want to have another mountain of gold. Okay, that is a normal, as a rational human being. Okay, you are looking for higher return, but that is a direct effect for me. But at the same time, I believe that some indirect effect need to be there. I mean, more engagement need to be done on behalf of bank, and also not only engagement, especially engagement with the customers, which I believe that the brand is very related to how you can engage with the people. Okay, not only you engage directly where you get the higher return, but you indirectly, you should portray that I'm an institution that have a good your vision is to promote Islam, right? I think that is another view that we need to look that perspective. Okay, not only that I do the business, that you should portray that as a brand that I do a business that fully comply the Sharia. That also not only comply the Sharia, but also I can create the values, but also I can create the social values. Okay, the social values that here is come from the staff, and also maybe the way you are dealing with the customers, right? Okay, I mean the aspect of the moral or the adab is part of them in terms of the engagement. Okay, I mean to be in. I mean you come up with a very inclusive way to do business, right? Okay, which I believe that can be engagement with the customers, so you can attract more people to do business with you, especially for non-Muslim. When you have a good akhlak, I'm sure that the people will like your business, right? Okay, I believe that indirectly. Yeah. Of course, the issues that the higher return that should attract the people to engage with your institution, Islamic finance industry, also is one of the factors. But again, we should be looking at conventionally, we should be looking at the profit margin normally. The profit margin of the profit margin between the financing side on your asset and also the cost of deposit. Okay, which I noticed that some of the bank, they are not efficient. You cannot run your business without a bigger profit margin. So you cannot run your business without that higher profit margin. So normally you are looking for higher profit margin between the financing and also the return to depositors. It shows what? It shows that you are not efficient. Okay. So some of the costs that maybe that you can make it efficient, you can do it efficiently is, of course, the technology is one of them, right? Okay, technology is one of them. The people also one of them, where you can employ a very person that can be efficient in product designing, for example, in business development or in risk compliance. For example, they can manage that properly instead of maybe you can employ many staff to do that business. Okay, so this is another angle that we need to look at. And of course, on the issues of NPF, non-performing analysis, we believe that the more stringent policy is sometimes welcome, right? Okay, stringent policy. Okay, rather than you have a very loose policy, which may affect on your profit. Yeah, I believe on that stringent, because sometimes with a stringent policy you can discipline the bankers, not only the bankers but also discipline the customers, right? Or the borrowers here. So sometimes the NPF, I think the best way to do is we follow what is the best practice here. Okay, because in different countries they have a different best practice. Of course, you need to follow what is the best practice. Yeah. And of course, you believe in the consolidation is part of the way to increase the market share. I believe that. Okay, and where sometimes the policy is from the top-down policy, public policy that come from the top, sometimes better than from the bottom. Okay, because you look at from the helicopter side, okay, rather than you look from the bottom. Okay. So, which I believe that maybe that policy, you may have the impact maybe 4 or 5 years from now, or maybe in the middle term or in the long term. I think it's a good idea to create that BSI, right? A consolidation of several Islamic banking, small become a bigger BSI, which I believe that can create more values, and not create values, but also can create more shares of Islamic bank in the country. Okay. I think another one is, of course, you need to do, if you want to go to increase the market share by looking at the places like in our neighboring countries. Again, the challenge is on our financial literacy, which I believe that is very important, especially the financial literacy in Islamic finance. Okay, because you want to come first. I remember that knowledge is very important to get your practice, right? Okay. Okay. Which I believe that we have the knowledge and then we can practice that. So meaning that the knowledge in Islamic finance is very important. So I think advocacy awareness program need to be done first I think somebody already done on that, especially in southern Thailand. Of course, Thailand, the Muslim population in Thailand more than the Muslim population in Malaysia. Okay, okay. So we can, the potential of having more Islamic bank in Thailand and also in Philippines, right? Not only that, in other countries like in Japan, you see that, or in Korea, because more Muslim there, the number of Muslim keep on increasing, and also not only that, in other countries, which I sometimes I believe that why not we reverse that? In the 18th centuries or 19th centuries, the Belanda colonized us, and then they bring the system to us, and then they set up the Standard Chartered in Malaysia, and then Algeman Netherlands Bank in Indonesia, right? So actually they do the dakwah, the same dakwah, right? I mean, they want to project their worldview to our country. Why not? Here is the time for us to go and make it a reverse thing.
To export our standard.
To export our worldview to our the country that colonized us. Okay, where maybe because of more Muslim, the number of Muslims increasing in that country, so maybe there is a way that we can penetrate the market, and not only penetrate market, but also I believe that Islamic Bank is not only to penetrate the market, but it's part of our da'wah, right?
Yeah.
Which I believe, okay, to get the ridha for Allah.
Yeah. Thank you, Prof.
Itu Pak Firman, Pak Iman.
Terima kasih, Prof.
Ya.
Terima kasih banyak Pak Iman Syah sudah involve langsung dalam diskusi, Pak. Terima kasih banyak, Pak. Thank you so much, Prof, for your response. I think it's very interesting and very contributive one. Before we proceed with the question and answers from the distinguished participants, I would like to also ask, if I may, also give, because this one is very interesting for us, especially in Islamic banking department, because currently we are, revisiting our roadmap to give more value addition to the Islamic banking development, especially in terms of what Pak Deden said earlier about the strengthening of Islamic banking identity. So I think it is very relevant for us to know that when you said about the value creation, I think value creation is also one of the important thing that the Islamic banks has to promote. Because when we said about the value creation, and you also explored the disclosure that you have already presented. The disclosure itself actually is just a matter of how we can classify, what we have in our existing report. For example, in Islamic Bank, we have a specific report regarding the zakah, or maybe infaq sedekah. So maybe if we have this kind of report that can visualize the wealth distribution, it will be very useful for us to know that you mentioned the wealth distribution from the Islamic Bank itself. How much is distributed for the employee, or maybe for the government, or zakah and anything else. One thing that I am curious actually, because I once heard, whether it is a hadith or maybe it is a athar from Sahaba, that the Sahaba or companions usually distribute their profits in their business, 1/3 to the next business as a capital, and then another 1/3 is for the shareholders, for the profit to enjoy for themselves, and then the other 1/3 is for charity, or maybe for the the distribution of wealth in terms of the society. So do you think this can be our guidance? Because currently I'm also expecting some kind of guidance for us that you have presented before about the wealth distribution that you mentioned in the diagram. But do you have any specific best practice of how much can we distribute among those wealth that can be distributed to others? Maybe for that one, I need your thoughts from here. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Regarding on this, one on the disclosure, another one is the curious about the what the distribution of profit or wealth. Okay. On the disclosure, I think more works need to be done on that. Okay, if you want to recognize the wealth, value added or wealth creation to be in our agenda. Okay, I give you an example here. Whether the what other, because the ecosystem, if you look at the ecosystem in the banking industry, not only looking at we as a players, but also we are looking for the regulators, we are looking for the customers, we are looking for others institutions. Right? One of the example here is, I'm sure that this is, I don't know what it happened on Indonesia. In the zakat allocation to the al-gharimin, because if you look at from the al-gharimin, the zakat authority provide this to the asna al-gharimin for those who are in debt, right? They are not able to pay the debt, and then you give them the amount of money from the zakat. Okay, but I think the ruling or the fatwa says that you are allowed to give loans to the al-gharimin. Okay, but then because of the standard says that when you give you loans, meaning that you need to return to me. That is a standard. Okay, and then you need to disclose that. Otherwise, you don't comply, right? Okay.
Yes, correct.
Okay, so if that happen, because the zakat you cannot pay that to the zakat authority, right? Because everything that you pay to the asnaf, meaning that you are khalas, finished. Okay, no need for you to pay to the zakat authority. But why do here is Islamic bank work as what the wakil, right? Meaning that the amount, the loans that be given to the entrepreneur, you transfer that to the entrepreneur, but entrepreneur pay to Islamic bank. So from there you can roll over the money for futures entrepreneur that want to have funding from the bank or from the zakat authority. Okay, so this is one example, and of course many example that can look into that. Okay, on that aspect disclosure, meaning that what I want to say is, yes, we can. I mean, we are moving more faster than the others ecosystem. I mean, the enabler factors, but sometimes the enabler won't provide the enable environment that we want to go further. Okay, that's the issues that we are facing now, not only in Malaysia, but also some other countries, they're also facing other problems. Okay, on this issue. One, on the disclosure. The other one is on you're curious about the composition of profit. I don't come across with that hadith, but I believe that we want to produce, when Allah says that the resources, you have to manage that resources. Okay, when you manage that resources, what is the compulsory spending, right? Okay, for you as what? As the organization, what is the compulsory spending? Because you contract with the what? With the ajir muajir.
Yes.
Okay, ajir muajir, there is a contract that you have to fulfill the contract. Okay, how much? Of course, is subject to the agreement, right? Because I offer the contract. But of course, in your budget planning, of course, how much that I want to allocate for the budget for staff, right? And also benefit. Okay, one, the contract. And also not only that, the profit is based on the contract that you want is the contract with the ajir muajir, and also with the customers, right? Okay, and also not only the customers, but also with the authority. Authority here meaning that you have to pay the zakat, because the compulsory spend for who? Spend for the ajir, muajir, and also spend for the zakat, and the rest is up to you, right? The profit that can go to the shareholders, right? The decision of your spending, right? Okay. So the guidance from the Quran only says that, okay, you create the wealth, of course, fulfill your governance contract with Ajir Muajir, okay? And then this is the operation. And then the other one is you pay the zakat, okay? The rest is up to the shareholders. Whether the shareholders want to give it to charities, of course, Allah, I mean, if you pay more than as what you are required to pay, actually you do just do the sedekah, right? Okay.
Yes.
Or you want to create the wakaf foundation and so on and so forth, right? Okay. So that is, for me, is the guidance is, look at the guidance from the Quran says that you can separate into, because first you have to fill the contract. And then of course it's based on your budget planning. Whether you follow 1/3, maybe you follow the 1/3, okay, which I don't come across with that. Or you can follow that guidance as a guiding principle, where you pay the zakat, you pay the what the customer, pay the staff, and also give more benefit, give any benefit to them, and also for your shareholders. Finally, is to show shareholders, okay? Because the shareholders normally they have the CSR, right? Okay. Corporate social responsibility, but the way they sometimes they put it, the zakat as CSR.
It's usually budgeted as a,
for me, the CSR is different from the zakat. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
This is my response, Pak
So much,
Riza.
Prof.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Prof.
Yeah.
I think one thing that there is also need to be concerned further actually is how we can distribute this wealth. Is it from the income or from the profit?
I'm not clear,
Because
Pak Riza.
the one I said before, when we can, sorry, I think I have a problem with my internet connection here. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. What I mentioned before, actually, the next thing that should be discussed further is about how can we distribute the wealth that you mentioned before. Is it coming from the income side or maybe in the profit side? Because what I mentioned about the 1/3 thing is actually coming from the profit side after deducting all the costs that should be occur.
Yeah.
Maybe there is something that we will discuss further, Prof. Thank you.
I think that's another angle that we need to look at. One is what I discussed is from the income side. Because if you refer to the Surah Al-Baqarah, is charity wealth you spend based on what? On the expenditure or based on the wealth. How do you define that wealth? Remember that the Surah Al-Baqarah, I think verses 270 to 269, I think, in Surah Al-Baqarah. Okay, you spend based on what? Based on your expenditure or based on your wealth? Meaning that when you allocate spending for compulsory or voluntary spending, here is compulsory, right? It's considered as compulsory because you pay to the
employees and everything
else, and you pay zakat, right? It's compulsory spending. But then it's voluntary spending. Okay, how much then? It's up to the shareholders, right? How much you want to pay. But then it's based on the benchmark here is based on either you use the expenditure or based on your wealth. Yeah. I think that can be used as a guidance. Of course, if you consider profit as your wealth, of course, the profit that you generate as your wealth, then you can use that. Okay. I think subject to further discussion.
Yes. Thank you so much, Prof.
Okay.
It's getting interesting in our discussion here, but I think I would like to allow some of the participants that have already raised their hands. Okay, firstly, we would like to welcome Pak Asep Sudirman. Pak Asep Sudirman have a question here. Maybe you would like to send the question verbally, maybe, Pak Asep? Asep, are you here? Okay. Otherwise, let me just read.
Yeah.
Okay, we have Pak Asep here. Please, Pak Asep.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Pak Reja Mustafa.
Pak Asep. Yeah.
Assalamualaikum, Prof.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullah.
Thank you for share.
Yeah.
Very nice to meet you, sir.
Yeah.
Professor,
Yes.
the presence of Islamic banks or Islamic financial institution is an attempt to correct the practice of usury or riba or interest in conventional banks. Islamic bank based on Islamic economic theory, but in practice, Islamic economic theory has not been fully implemented.
Yep.
The most basic thing is the issue of interest rate benchmark, all of the operation.
Yeah.
Islamic economic theory has a different concept, namely the economic value of time. But in practice, it's still trapped or stuck on the theory of time value of money, which comes from the agio theory or the positive theory of capital by West scholar Bombauer.
Yeah.
Bombauer considers interest as an economic obligation. Based on this theory, the concept of time value of money appears in explaining the add value of money. The concept of this theory states that to maintain the real value in the future, an additional amount of money is needed by using the interest rate as the factor of discount. This concept then led to the calculation of future value and present value. This calculation is also the basis for calculating investment and financial feasibility in Islamic banks. My question is, Professor, in Malaysia, do Islamic banks have a different concept of calculating investment and financial feasibility as a standard tool? Or are Islamic banks in Malaysia still using the same analysis tool like in Indonesia? So if yes, why we haven't been able to make our own tool based on the appropriate theory by Islamic economic theory principles? Thank you, Professor.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Pak Asep. Please, Prof, if you have any response.
Yeah. If you ask me on the tools, on the investment and also financial feasibility tools that are used by the Islamic bank in Malaysia, whether they follow the conventional tools or can I say that use the conventional one, and then you adapt it and also adopt it in Islamic bank? The answer is yes. The answer is yes. Okay. Because so far we don't have any new tools or visibility tools on the investment, except that some of the idea that we want to embed is recently in our discussion is to look into the investment that are looking for the three elements. Okay. We want to embed the feasibility studies that the investment or the activities that the Islamic bank want to embark is to look into the relationship, the people with the creators, people with the other planet, and also the people with other people and also other people. So meaning that you look at from the vertical and also from the horizontal. But we find it very difficult to come up with a tool. How can we come up with a tool? Because currently we have the guideline. We have the internal guideline. I believe that each bank provide their own internal guideline on that. But then the problem is to move away from that conventional tool. So hopefully when we have that, maybe in Indonesia we already have, so we can share with us on these tools on the how to assess on the investment and also financial accessibility on how to assess the performance of Islamic bank, which I believe that by having that, we are moving from the theory that already in place, very famous story on the theory of value of money. But basically, we are what I want to say here is we want to move away from that worldview, okay? Because we believe that money is not used to create values, but money is used as a medium of exchange, okay? So as a medium of exchange, you do the transaction where you have the commodity. I can link that money with the commodity, and then that commodity are very important element in Islamic bank or in any transaction of Islamic bank. Okay, especially in a murabaha contract, for example, we have the commodity, and also in tawarruk also we have the commodity. So basically, we want to move away from that, the worldview of money to create money, but money as a medium of exchange rather than money to issues to create money. Okay, but I believe that it will take time. But we are already in the market for how many years? Since 1990s, right? So 33 years. Yeah.
More than 30 years.
Yeah, 30 years. So whereas the conventional already there for how many years? Okay.
Yes.
So we need more research that can support this development.
Yes. Thank you so much, Prof. Pak Asep, do you have any further questions? Or?
We should follow to continue with focus group discussion. It's very.
We will take a deeper discussions, of course. Yeah, of course we are looking forward for deeper discussion.
Because thank you, Professor.
Yeah, welcome, Ajab.
Thank you so much,
Jakarta. Maybe we can have further discussion on that, Pak Asep.
Yes,
Yeah,
of course.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Alhamdulillah, I think maybe this webinar will be some kind of trigger for us to move for further discussion, Prof. Maybe another sessions will be conducted.
Inshallah. Can trigger more discussion,
Yeah, inshallah. Thank you so much, Prof, for your response. Let me just move to the next question raised by Pak Helmi. Pak Helmi is one of our Deputy Director in Islamic Banking Department. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me just read it for you, Prof. Dear Honorable Prof. Abdul Ghaffar, nowadays the perception of performance is size does matter. And I think it drives the comparison of market share between Sharia bank or Islamic bank with conventional banking. The question is it relevant for comparing Sharia banking with conventional banking? Apologize, why the question is gone here?
Gone already.
Hold on, Prof. Is it relevant for comparing Sharia banking with conventional banking, especially in terms of financial performance such as total assets, profit and efficiency, and others? Although the customer may be the same, but on my opinion, first, the conventional bank mostly more established than Sharia bank. Second, Sharia banking also conduct social function beside commercial function. And third, Sharia business cannot enter the non-halal industry, differ from conventional banking. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Yeah. I want to respond that from Pak siapa ya?
Pak Helmi, Pak.
Pak Helmi, okay. On the size matter, kan? I agree with you that size matter because the bigger the size, meaning that you have more capital. And of course, the more capital, as I have shown that in the diagram in the table, that you can generate more values from that, and also you can use that for your future business. Okay, and especially the regulators ask you to have more capital, right? And then you have a bigger size. Okay, but not only for me, it's not only the size matters. Okay, for me is the menu that you have. Our experience here shows that the more menu that you have, and then the menu should be tailored with the demand from the customers, especially for the corporate client. Okay, for the corporate client, you should be very innovative. Okay, because the need of the corporate client differ from the retail client, right? Okay, the menu that you have, meaning that the more product that you have, meaning that you can offer more product, meaning that more people will be asking for your product, which is compatible to the conventional product, right? I give you an example where, for example, one client came to us and then they asked, I park my money in Singapore, okay, but I park money in conventional. But how can I transfer that money overnight, that money to Malaysia, for example, and then save in Islamic bank, and then tomorrow I will send back to, let's say, to other financial centers, right? Can you advise me on that? What type of product that you can offer to me, right? This is one example where the bankers can innovate, right? To innovate a product where initially they save the money in bank which don't comply the Syariah, and then you bring back that money to the Syariah banking, and then tomorrow you bring back to the financial center, and then overnight you can bring back to Islamic banking because you don't receive anything from the conventional. So this is the one example where you can innovate the product that suit with the need of their customers, especially the corporate, because the corporate sometimes they need to tailor the product with their need. Okay, for example, sukuk, for example, trade financing, to suit with the need, or the structure of the product should be tailored with the need of the customers. Okay, so not only the size matters, but the product, more product matters for me. Okay.
Yes. True.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Prof.
Yeah.
It is also relevant within our internal discussion in OJK, actually.
Yeah.
Because we are not promoting the uniqueness of Islamic banking by promoting the what's so-called a strong characteristic of Islamic banking products.
Yeah.
Like for example, in Malaysia, you've already implemented the the PSIA, right? Profit Sharing Investment
PSIA,
Account.
yeah.
It is something that is unique and cannot be duplicated by conventional banks. So is there any evidence that, like for example, in conducting a PSIA, some of the implementation is recorded on the off-balance sheet? And do you think, is it possible for us to recognize those kind of off-balance sheet assets? It could be recognized as our asset. I mean, our performance in Islamic banks, so that in the future, we can recognize that PSIA within this off-balance sheet is part of our asset, and we can also increase our market share through this kind of product. Do you think is it relevant for us to do that?
Yeah. I think there is a need to be discussed further with the accounting standard whether we can recognize or not the off-balance sheet in the balance sheet, right? On the on-balance sheet. Because finally that affect on the amount of, let's say, on many parameters. For example, you want to look at how do you calculate the capital adequacy requirement, and also you want to calculate the liquidity requirement. Capital adequacy requirement, liquidity requirement is based on the asset that appear in your asset or appear on your off-balance sheet. Okay, so I think that need the discussion need to be discussed. More discussion need to be done. Okay, in relation to that. Okay, because that have an implication. For me, have an implication on the operation. Although that if you consider that maybe it can increase the share of the asset of the Islamic bank. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Prof. I think we should proceed with the. I hope this will be the last question, Prof. Because.
Okay.
Okay. We have Mr. Pak Rahyang Rizal here that would like to address the question in verbal. Please, Pak Rahyang Rizal.
Yeah, thank you, Brother Reza. Thank you, Prof. Abdul Ghaffar.
Yep.
For share very interesting knowledge. Jazakallah khairan katsiran. I would to ask about your point of view regarding several opinions about measurement of Islamic banking performance, Prof. Maybe the first opinion say that Islamic banking, since they has different business activities from conventional bank, so its performance must be measurement. So its performance measurement should be different from conventional banking and must use several parameters of the uniqueness of the Islamic bank, such as the use of the contract or akad, the first opinion. And maybe the second opinion says that the investor will not be interested in investing in Islamic banking if they use different performance measurement standard, because the investor will have a difficulty to compare the performance of Islamic bank with other financial institutions. So they will have a difficulty to measure the risk, and they have difficulty to measure the return. And if I may ask, what your opinion about that debate?
Okay.
Thank you, Prof.
Pak Rahayang, I agree on both questions, but I need to get more more elaboration on that based on the contract. I agree that because the contract, if you disclose that on the contractual basis, actually, I agree with that. One, because of each contract, you need to disclose it differently. One, okay, the contract should be disclosed differently. Why? The reason you need to disclose differently, because the asset to be, the profit, okay, or the cost that can be, you can share or not, the cost and the profit that you can share or not is different. Each contract treat them differently for each contract. So therefore, for me, is to disclose that based on the contract, the performance based on the contract is very good step moving forward. Okay, because each contract look at the different, you treat the cost, you treat the profit differently, and also distribution of that profit differently. Second one is on the I agree on this. Sorry, I forgot them. On the second point, what is that, Bariza?
Yeah, the second opinion says that if Islamic bank...
sorry, the standard measurement, the ratio, right? Okay, yeah, the ratio. If you look at the ratio, of course, investors, normally the investors that looking for a standard to compare. Apple to apple. You want to compare apple with apple. You cannot compare apple with lemon. Okay. So let's say you have the ROE of Islamic bank, you have the ROE of conventional bank. Yes, I agree with that. Okay, on that measurement, the standard. The one that already adopted by many. But we're also looking for extra. For example, in my presentation here is we want to look at distribution of wealth, because this is not the main agenda in conventional bank. Okay, the value added that we can be created, because we want to preserve the market of Syariah and the preservation of wealth. Okay, to safeguard the wealth, not only the safeguard, but also the wealth, you make it grow. Okay, and then when you generate wealth, how do you distribute that? I think that also become a new agenda that can help the investors, that this is an additional ratio that can be adopted by Islamic Bank in order to show that we are beyond that. Okay, we are beyond the ROE, we are beyond the ROE. We should go into other ratio that can help the customers or the other stakeholders to look at this is a new brand of Islamic banking, or in this new brand of Islamic finance. Hope I can answer that question.
Yes.
Yeah.
I hope that clarifies.
Yeah.
Pak Rahayang.
Yeah. Thank you, Prof.
Welcome.
Maybe if you don't mind, if you share your contact, sir,
Sure,
so I
sure,
can
sure. You can
then if
ask
I
Pak Reza.
Yes, of course, I will share with you.
thank you, Prof. Jazakallah
Welcome.
khairan.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Pak Rahyang. Can we move to the next two questions, Prof, if you don't mind? Because we have two more questions to resolve here.
Yeah.
The first one is coming from anonymous attendee. Most of the conventional parameters is more advanced and comprehensive, at least here in Indonesia. Regarding that, there are some issues in the conventional parameters are applied. First, Islamic banks in Indonesia may have more challenges ahead in increasing their market share compared to conventional banks, which have been far dominating the market. Second, the difference in the financial instruments of Islamic and conventional banks is also another issue. Please share your insight and the best approach to address the issue above. I think the same question about the market share always been raised here. Please, Prof, maybe you have another additional insight, maybe. Because in Malaysia, we can see that the market share were boosted, increase significantly. Maybe we can learn from Malaysia.
Okay, most conventional parameters, more advanced. Of course, I don't think that more advanced because the parameters we also have. I mean, based on my experience with the Islamic bank and also the takaful industry in Malaysia, they have more advanced method to measure the performance. Okay, because we are not looking at the financial parameters, but we should looking at other parameters, social parameters. Okay, our engagement with the communities. We want to engage the community to be with us. So how can you do that? The parameter that you can, how many projects that you involve the community in your activities. Okay, that is very important for me. It's very important. Okay, engagement. Okay, the difference in financial instrument again is of course the issues, because you cannot replicate. For me, you cannot replicate. If you replicate, meaning that you are considered as the same as, okay. But you can come up, actually, you can come up with a new product. I believe that product design department or business development department is very important here to come up with the product. Okay. And Alhamdulillah, with our, I mean, my experience with the assistant from the Syariah committee, normally I will say my team, we help them to come up with a product that can penetrate the market and also offer to the public. This product is much better than the conventional. Because, for example, in takaful product, for example, we provide more benefit to the customers. Okay, so if they see that the benefit more, so I believe that they can go into that takaful instrument rather than they go to the conventional. I believe that. Okay. Yes. So how do you? I mean, here is your ability to attract the customers, new customers, or retain the old one. Actually, it depends on the product that you have, which I believe that one of them.
Yeah. Okay.
The one is Saiful.
Yeah, the last one is from Saiful. Prof, what's your opinion to increase the growth of Islamic banking? We encourage the subsidiaries to split off from their parents. Okay, maybe let me just give you a brief explanation on this, Prof, because recently we have just published our new regulation on spin-off of the Islamic window. Okay. Because currently we are expecting the Islamic window that has reached 50% of its parents' share, market asset share, and or has reached 50 trillion rupiah, should be spun off from the parents. So what do you think about this kind of regulation, Prof?
Many pro and cons from there. If you want to split, the split is you split the system, you split the people. Right. You split the people, you split the system. Of course, you split the system, one conventional, one Islamic. But if you split the physical, split the physical infrastructure, whether it is good or not, okay,
Yeah,
to the bank.
sometimes good or not.
Sometimes good not. Okay, we look at on that the feasibility, right? Feasibility study whether you can split. I think we need to get to look into that perspective. Split the resources where one person can handle both.
Yeah.
Okay, but again, also the cons. The con is how do you split the ujrah? Whether my ujrah come from Islamic or from conventional. So there's another issue. I think, of course, towards the end is better to split that. Why you want to create what entity, which the entity is based totally on the Syariah. Whereas at one point, of course, if you split the system in the beginning, you have the problem on how do you manage the people, how do you manage the cost, okay, and also the infrastructure, okay. But towards the end, I think this is good for the development of the Islamic finance industry. You split that, okay, because by having a split, meaning that you create the confidence among the people outside there. This is totally different. You are totally separated.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is interesting to discuss about this kind of issue because in Malaysia we witnessed that most of the Islamic banks maybe has already been splitted.
Only a few.
Being splitted. Only a few. But in terms of the branding image, it's almost the same, Prof. Because for example, if we see Maybank and Maybank Islamic, they have the same branches, right?
The same branches.
They offered in the same branches also. But I think it's quite interesting to know that they promote more, maybe in terms of efficiency, or maybe share resources that could deliver more. More attractive or more competitive product in terms of the on the Islamic banking side, maybe. Because we know that the parents has already been matured before, and because of this advantage, maybe they can share their resources to be also included in the subsidiary.
Inshallah,
So okay, thank you so much, Prof, for the discussion today. It's very fruitful and very active discussion also from the participant. Thank you so much for your participation. With this, I would like to conclude just a little bit on the discussion, on our discussion today. Like Prof mentioned, we need to emphasize more on what are our value added or value addition of Islamic banks. Like for example, if we already use our existing measures, like for example, NPF, ROE, ROA, I think we can still engage with those kind of measures because it is also important for us to, elaborate this kind of existing measures to the public, so the public will easily understand what are the benefits, what are the risks of investing in such kind of product. But I think the main thing that we have to elaborate more is what is the uniqueness of Islamic banks that can create another measures. A newly innovated product should be promoted also to create more measures, and we should also introduce new measures to the customers, but not in the complicated way. We should also think on how we can elaborate an easiest way for us to deliver these new measures to the customers so that we can also engage with a better performance ahead. Thank you so much, Prof, again for your contribution here, especially in OJK. It means a lot for us to conduct more studies. I believe we have so many topics that can be discussed further after this session, maybe. So inshallah, we are looking forward for your engagement in the future. Thank you so much, Prof.
Inshallah.
So thank you. Any concluding remarks from your side before I conclude, Prof?
No, I think thank you very much to Pak Riza and also Ajika for inviting me. Hope the sharing session here will benefit us. Not only, I think some of us is students, some of us is players or regulators that can benefit from different angles here.
Thank you so much, Prof. Jazakallah khair, barakallah fiqh. May Allah grant you all rewards for this sharing knowledge for us. Thank you so
Inshallah.
much. With this, I will hand over to MC, Mbak Naura, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reza Mustafa. And thank you for Professor Abdul Ghafar Ismail for the presentation and also the discussion for today's knowledge sharing. As the discussion has ended, so will our event today end. Distinguished participants, we are so delighted and honored for your participations today. We do really appreciate your active participation on today's knowledge sharing. We also do apologize for any shortcomings during this event, and we hope we can meet again in another sessions. Thank you so much and see you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam
Waalaikumsalam
warahmatullahi
warahmatullahi
wabarakatuh.
wabarakatuh.
Thank
Makasih,
you,
Mbak Naura.
Ibu Naura.
Thank
Thank you, Pak Riza.
Profesor.
Makasih banyak, Prof. Gofar.
Sama-sama. Ya.
Insyaallah jumpa lagi di
Insyaallah,
Indonesia,
insyaallah.
Prof.
Ya, insyaallah jumpa di Jakarta.
Insyaallah.
Insyaallah. Ya.
Pak Deden, makasih Pak Deden.
Sama.
Terima kasih Mas Reza.
Om Reza,
Pak Deden. Masih Pak Deden.
Terima kasih.
Jumpa lagi.
Sampai
Ya.
jumpa lagi, Prof.
Insyaallah.
Makasih Mas Reza.
Makasih Mas Syariah, sukses penelitiannya.
Ya, makasih. Assalamualaikum.